Good afternoon. I want to thank everybody who joins us. My name is Olga Atamanov, and Ukraine Media Center Ukraine Forum continues its operation. It's day 357 of the full-scale invasion of the Russian aggressor in our land. And now we will be talking about the situation in the fuel market. I want to introduce our guest. It's Serhii Kuiun, director at A95 Consulting Group. Good afternoon, Mr. Serhii. Good afternoon. So what are the changes we're seeing now? We're through winter almost. We've overcome the fuel crisis, in our opinion. Correct me if I'm wrong. So what's the situation as of now? How ready are we to the spring? We understand that traditionally winter is the moment, the period of some reduction in demand for the fuel. So how are we ready to the spring? That there are sowing works are about to begin and so on. Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I will tell about the conditions we ended up in this season. We may summarize some results of the year, and one of the most important results is that we were able to fully eliminate the threat of fuel deficit. There was a critical situation. I will remind you, we've lost, as of the beginning of the April last year, we've lost the 100% of the sources of supply of the fuel, and no country in this world ever faced a situation like that. And no one in Europe or in the world believed that we would be able to renew the supply and we would be able to provide the army, economy, and the consumers with the fuel. And after 3 months, country was not even feeling, well, not on the deficit, but there was profit of all the types of fuel in the market. We've built the new logistic chains for fuel supply. This new system is way more diversified, way more flexible, apart from the fact that those are the new countries that we supply fuel from. One of the last news is that we started massive supplies of American diesel fuel. They were started in January, and the scale is growing in February, and it emphasizes those revolutionary changes. No such fuel was ever present in Ukraine, and now we're seeing it. Apart from that, there is fuel from India, Taiwan, Netherlands. It all tells us how diversified, how geographically diversified the supply network is, and the logistics system changed dramatically. We were supplying the fuel with railway and sea, and now automobile transport accounts for 40% of supplies of fuel. Those are thousands of fuel tanks that from the security vantage point, they are impossible to catch. It's the flow that cannot be stopped. You can bomb a fuel base, you can bomb a fuel processing plant, oil processing plant, you can target a railway station, but the fleet of the fuel tanks grew thrice at least. The Ukrainians bought all the used fuel tanks that were available in Europe. So it's a revolutionary thing. And all that system, it passed the first exam in November and December, when due to blackouts there was the explosive growth of use of generators, and thanks to the supply of fuel back then, we were through that period. There was no deficit either of diesel fuel or gas, and it allowed the private consumers and the businesses to go through this period. And another good news is that last January the balance of the fuel market is larger than the previous year. So we have more fuel in the market today than it was previous year when the consumption was bigger. Yes, we have to say that due to the fall of economy, due to the loss of territories, the consumption fell. But now we have very good provisions of fuel, and we move very confidently into this spring season. And why is it so? Because starting from October, the government initiated a dialogue with about creation of such provisions, because we were understanding that the embargo of import of Russian oil fuel to Europe would be implemented, and I may assume that Russians were promoting that information about the possible deficit, that everything would stop. But we celebrated 5th of February in a very symbolic manner with the fall of prices at the gas stations. That was another phase of falling. And during January, the prices for fuel were reduced like at least 4 or 5 hryvnias, and for the liquefied gas it's 15%. And I'm seeing that in February we still have potential for reduction of prices for at least 2 hryvnias per liter. Well, you mentioned embargo, that it did not influence our internal market. Was there any impact felt by any other countries? Well, it did influence us, both us and Europeans. We prepared ourselves. We are full with fuel, and Europe is full of fuel. And the biggest chains, they have more than 30 days provisions of fuel, and the supplies are still on. It keeps coming. So there are provisions for current consumption, and there are supplies going on in normal scale. I would even say in some excessive amounts. What's going on in the world with the oil product prices? What are the trends? What dynamic do you observe? Well, before the embargo, which was implemented on the 5th of February, well, 5th of February, actually it passed unnoticeable both for us and Europe. It was just a regular day, and now it's been 10 days and no serious fluctuations that we could observe, no panic, no growth of prices. On contrary, we see the price being reduced. Everybody wants to sell their fuel. So actually embargo influenced the market in a very good way. Everybody imported a lot of fuel, and everybody keeps calm, and everybody is confident about the future. Dear colleagues, if you have any questions, well, about the sowing campaign, well, yeah, we don't have questions. Well, there was a topic announced about the sowing campaign, and I'm being asked very frequently this question about sowing and harvesting season. Is the some remnant from the past, from the Soviet era? We were fluctuating back then in spring and autumn, because somehow unexpectedly everybody started understanding that they would sow something, and then in the autumn it would be a harvesting season. But it's been more than 10 years that the factor of field works by the agrarians doesn't influence any price changes, because everybody understands that there will be more demand in spring and autumn. The only factor that influences it is the world price, and I'm sure there will be no explosive growth of price due to some internal factors, because there is enough fuel in Europe. And let's go on. The agrarian sector we're having now is very different from what we used to have. Those are powerful agrarian holdings, and those agrarian holdings, they worked very interesting last year when there was deficit, and today they have some of the agrarian holdings, they have their own tankers, and they import the fuel by themselves. I'm not even saying that they have provisions. The traders who sell it to them, they confirm it that the agrarians have a lot of fuel. And we were helped by those provisions that agrarians used to have. Government was concerned about that business when the oil bases were bombed, when the Kremenchuk oil processing plant was bombed. There were concerns, but the agrarians they had good provisions of fuel, and it helped us pass this period very comfortably. Unfortunately, we have to recognize that many sowing areas are lost, and we will need respectively less fuel than we used to need before. Either so the territories are either lost or mined. Well, those are the details, but they are unfit for use anyway. Those soils cannot be worked on due to a number of factors. So we have a lot of fuel, we have a lot of provisions, including provisions of agrarians, and the demand will be lower than always, than usually. And I'm seeing no risks resulting from sowing campaign. Maybe we have questions on the floor. I have a question. Could you tell us what are the countries that we import most of the fuel from? Well, that's probably it. Well, we have to segregate where we supply fuel from and where we buy it from. Due to geographic specificities, our biggest border is with Romania and Poland. But it doesn't necessarily mean that we buy from those countries. Yes, they are the biggest logistic ways of supply, but we don't have Romanian manufactured or Polish manufactured fuel. I don't think that we have any Romanian fuel at all. So it means, what I'm saying is that we use the territory of those countries to transport the fuel from the ports of those countries, like Constanța in Romania. There are also ports in Bulgaria and in Poland. In Poland, they are the biggest, and it's good news how we built this new market. One of the Ukrainian companies procured pretty big terminal in Poland last year, and the scale of supply through that terminal keeps growing, and it's a stable flow of fuel products that now already formulates the price. But because what the access to the sea gives you, it deprives the logisticians or somebody who may set some speculative prices. Well, we have to recognize no matter if anybody likes it or not, we pay a lot of money to Europeans for transportation. Everybody makes a lot on us, both port operators, the transporters, and traders. Well, the prices fell substantially now comparing to the summer when our consumption was on peak. However, those are really very good, very big expenses. We overpay about $100 per ton. It's about 3 hryvnias per liter. And during the year, that amount will be equal to more than $1 billion. So we are dependent on that fuel. We need that fuel, and in case of such infrastructure projects, when our companies buy our fleet of tanks, when our companies buy terminals, it provides, it ensures better price for us. And I think that the government should ponder over, like, yeah, we found new sources of supply. We ensured the supply of fuel, but that fuel is very expensive, and we have to think how to reduce the prices for the economy. Because we are the country who's in war, we cannot pay that much for the fuel. And there were news today about Transnafta, who procured some big amount of fuel in Hungary at some fantastically high price. First of all, it's expensive. Second, we buy that fuel from Orban. In fact, do we really need it? Don't we have other sources of supply? But we can buy from them, but we have all the opportunities to buy cheaper because the oil is being supplied to Hungary through our territory, and in fact we allow them to make money on Russian oil. So talking about this cooperation with Hungarians, we have to do it on some mutually beneficial conditions. Okay, we're buying it from European Union, but again, we may pose questions about buying without that added value existing in the market today. I appreciate that information you provided, and we hope that by summer those volumes that we need will grow, because we will liberate the temporarily occupied territories. Dear colleagues, I'm reminding you, joining us was Serhii Kuiun, the director of A95 Consulting Group, and the next briefing will be at 13 o'clock. Joining us will be Natalia Sad, spokeswoman of the Ukroboronprom State Concern, and we will talk about cooperation with international partners. Bear with us and trust in our armed forces. Glory to Ukraine. Thank you.